Hello, friends. I'm David Vos. It's good to see you. I'm going to be doing a number 3 in the series, friends. Standing out here on my property. It's a beautiful day. Oh, wow. It was hot for 2-3 days before this. And I was beginning to think, man, summer's here. Today's a little cloudier and it feels good. It's still warm, but it's cloudier and the temperature's dropped. I think it's going to rain a little bit, maybe tomorrow or something. But friends, this is going to be a very important video. I think a lot of you probably just watch the first couple minutes and think, nah, this isn't going to be so great, and you move on. Well, let me tell you, this will be worth watching all the way through. Believe me. Because I'm going to reveal a bunch of stuff about magic that you probably don't even, you know, some of you magicians out there think you're magicians, or some of you who are investigating astrology and the occult. Well, you're going to learn stuff in this video that's not been available for those who are searching. Because you see, a lot of this information has just been lost from the earth for a long time. You can read in the ancient writings about things that people were doing as though you should know what's going on. That people lived in those days knew what was going on because they were more familiar with things that we're just not familiar with. Words that they had, we're transliterating them today and using them. They were using them because they were familiar with them. They understood what a spirit was. There were individuals who spoke to spirits. How can that be? Well, how did Sir Lancelot kill a dragon? And what's a dragon? I've never seen no dragon. There ain't no dragons. You know? Were there really dragons? What about elves? Do they really exist? How come we don't see these things? And why is it today we still believe in things that we don't see? But yet it's a completely different thing. We're just all pretending now. Do you think they were pretending in those days? Do you think Jesus was pretending when he cast out a legion of these spirits from this man? Do you think he was pretending when he cast out other spirits and spoke to them and asked them their name and bound them with spells? You think it's just a story? Well, maybe it is, right? But I'm going to show you today that it's not a story. This is going to be number 3 in the series on magic. And I promise you, if you're interested in magic, or if you're just curious about somebody's theories on magic, or like you're interested in knowing what it was that people were doing in ancient times and what people can do today, and how real is this stuff, and is there any real such, is magic real? If you're just curious, maybe this guy's got something interesting to say. Maybe it's just for comedy. Maybe you just want to watch because it's funny. You think it's funny that somebody would believe in gnomes and trolls, elves, fairies, undines, mermaids, unicorns. Any human being. Look, I'll bet you, a lot of us watch Fox News, right? I'm gonna throw somebody under the bus here. A few people, okay? Just because we have to. We got to do it because we've got to come to the understanding. And sometimes the only way to understand something is to hear it from a point of view or an angle that you've never even thought about it. Because what I want to do is I want to show us that we're all just pretending. And yet we don't need to be, because there's something real out there that we've just been ignoring. It doesn't do any good to ignore your feelings. If you know that what you're doing's not true, be a man. Step up and say, look, I just don't know what I'm doing. Because there is something real. Wouldn't it be ridiculous to go around through life pretending that there were trees and flowers when there really is trees and flowers that you can really go out and look at and they're beautiful. And when you see a tree or a beautiful flower, there isn't any fakery. If you have a heart, some of these flowers around here, little butterscotch ones with little red things in the middle. We've got vines now with these little red, look like little bugles. I don't know the names of all these flowers. They're just beautiful all over my property. And pink roses and beautiful white flowers about this big. I call them like little cauliflower flowers. Unbelievable. It makes me happy. And I'm not faking it. See, I see the flower. It's got a fragrance. It's beautiful. Oh, but Dave, you know, can't have a paradise fairy world. That's just ridiculous. Just come down to reality. Well, that's darn near the fairy world right there. The universe has a beautiful world. There's trees, there's flowers, there's beautiful things, and it's real. But if we were to walk around in a world of make-believe, which is what most of us are doing, then we're going to actually miss out on many things that actually really do exist. So I'm going to throw some people under the bus here. A lot of us are, you know, maybe watch TV, maybe you watch CNN or Fox News. I don't know, whichever is your pleasure. Maybe you see Tucker Carlson. Now specifically, I like Tucker Carlson. I think he's honest. I think he's a good guy. I like him a lot. He's got some courage to do, you know, expose things and stuff. And, you know, then on the other side, you've got Wolf Blitzer or whatever. You've got these other people. Now, take, for instance, some Republicans, some of you conservatives that more or less trust Sean Hannity. You trust that he's going to try and tell you the truth. He's not really lying to you. Now, if you're liberal, you probably think he's just lying through his teeth. But you trust him. You trust Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham. I think Laura Ingraham is a very sincere, decent, honest person, and she's telling you what she believes. She sees the world through the lens of her conservative mind, and she sees it this way. May not all be true, but that's what she believes. Everybody has a filter. Okay, but now this person, if you told, let's just take Tucker Carlson. Bless his soul, I love him with all my heart. But if you were to tell him, Tucker, do you know that there's such a thing as elves, gnomes, and trolls under your bridge? You know, you cross a bridge, there's a troll under there. Do you know that's real? He'd be like, oh yeah, you believe in Sasquatch, don't you? You're one of those people who believes in planets, you know, and there's people on the planets, and there's UFOs, and all of these aliens. They probably got big eyes, and they're staring at you at night when you're sleeping, huh? Monsters under your bed. And I'm sure, you know, he doesn't look, I don't know, I'm just guessing. It's just an example. But a lot of individuals who have gone on to higher learning in schools today, and remember, these schools go all the way back to these universities, these of higher learning. They go back to the original schools that we talk about, which, you know, the school of the prophets that Elijah created. And then there was the Egyptian mystery schools and the Babylonian mystery schools, and we had Mithraism and Zoroastrianism. These were schools. And that's why to this day we say that Jesus was a master and he had disciples or students. The word disciple, that's Greek, it just means a student. And so Elijah had students. John the Baptist had students. He had disciples. Pythagoras had students, disciples. One of his students was Aristotle. And there was Plato. He eventually became a master, and then he had students. This is exactly the same thing that Elijah did, and then the mantle fell to Elisha. These were these ancient schools, and they come from the ancient priesthoods. They're not just some guy out in the woods, you know, smoking, and come up with some stuff, you know, and he's like, come on down. I'm going to teach you some stuff. And these guys were teaching people about, ready for it? Dragons, gnomes, and trolls. So, maybe Mr. Sir Lancelot and Percival, the great prince, pulled the sword out of the rock, the sword of truth. Next in line to King Arthur himself. Had to conquer that dragon, save the pretty maiden, came across some fairies. What are these stories about? Well, truth is stranger than fiction. And so those of higher learning, like Tucker Carlson, probably wouldn't believe in this kind of thing. And I'm not picking on Tucker. I'm just saying, I know I can pick on him because he's a real man. And he's not going to, start whining and complaining about it. And he probably wouldn't even know that I'm talking about him. I love him. The smithereens, I love him. I just care so much about a lot of people that are honest and true, and they're doing their best. But what we're going to do today is we're going to get really down into what really magic is, if it's real, or is it just we talked about genies, how the ancient priesthood was the ability to conjure up a jinn. Now that's the Arabic, but we call them spirits. And a lot of you probably think, well, demons, if you're talking about demons, that's bad, that's devil worship. No. What you have to understand is we're just completely confused from top to bottom. Demon in the New Testament, the word daimon, it doesn't mean an evil spirit. There are a few translations that translated evil spirit, but in the Greek, it just means a spirit. That's it. It not necessarily, they're not good nor they're evil. They're mischievous. But we need to know not only how to perform magic, if it's real, but why, and who, and where, and what kind of a world do we live in? See, we're finding out now we're living in a world where supposedly this is solid, right? And but now in the 20th century we find out no, it's not really so solid. It's made out of energy. It's invisible. We may just be living in some sort of a hologram. What is that? It's a spirit. In the Hebrew and in the Greek, spirit means wind. See, it's just the word wind. But there are different kinds of winds? What does that mean? No. See, wind is something that's invisible, but it's powerful. So it should be translated everywhere in the Bible where you have the word spirit. It really could be translated the force. Like on Star Wars, the force. May the force be with you. There is a force, a power, a spiritual, invisible power. And that's what makes up the physical world. We call it energy. E equals mc squared. This is something we've just found out in the last 100 years. But they knew about this in ancient days. And the priests were scientists. And they had a huge scientific vocabulary and understanding that we have lost. Because at the Tower of Babel, which is a real happening, historical, it's in the Babylonian, Sumerian, Akkadian, Egyptian, it's in the Bible. There was a time when mankind had great knowledge and they were trying to become like God. And there was no telling what they could do. They could do anything. They had so much power. They had one language, one science. Today, I don't know what you would call it because we've lost it. It's all split up into various kinds of sciences. We've got astrology, astronomy, science, math, algebra, geometry. We got to split geometry and algebra up, right? They're both some sort of mathematics, but we've got various splitting. You can take one course on geometry and another course on algebra, and there's higher physics, and there's it's just split up into hundreds of different concepts. And when you go to school today, to show you, to prove to you that we really don't know what we're doing, you're talking about, like, you're going to take a course in religion. My daughter's doing that. She's been going to university, and she's got her associate's degree now, and she's going for her master's. And she had to take a bunch of history and religion and stuff like that. Well, she would show me their homework and stuff like this, and Basically, they were saying, okay, now so-and-so said something. Now, how could that be true? And somebody else come along and said something different. And so, basically what we're trying to do here is discredit everything that history has and say everything we know now is better. And don't, even pay attention to the fact that we really don't know what we're talking about now. But it's all speculation. It's like they're telling you, we don't know. Basically, school today is just, we're trying to find somebody out there. Come on, sign up for school, because the teachers have lost what they were supposed to be teaching. They're not like the prophets. They don't have knowledge of the mysteries. It's been apostate. The school of Aristotle and Pythagoras and Moses and Jesus, yeah, they're the same thing. They're schools, science. It was broke up at the Tower of Babel, and all the different nations had one piece or another of it. But if you go back before the flood, you look at the Great Pyramid, you see, but they had all this knowledge about the stars, who they were, about the gods, and yeah, about dragons and gnomes and trolls and fairies. But you don't know anything about that. So you hear about magicians, you say, well, now, church told me not to believe in that. Well, that's why we don't know about them, because they told us not to believe in it. And they burned all those books at Alexandria and Constantinople, Heliopolis. They burned all those books. They pushed them underground. They buried them. They burned down the cathedrals. They killed people. They martyred them. They wrote ecumenical councils forbidding you to know these things or to even speculate about these things. There was once a time when the earth was more fluid, more spirit. See, the spirit consolidates into a physical thing. Spirit transformed into matter and matter into spirit. Anything physical can never be lost. It could be transformed into energy and back into flesh again. So if you're a physical being, you exist. There's no time and space in reality. So if you exist now, you exist. This is your form. But your form changes. But your essence does not. Who you are can never change. You are someone special. You are that inner spiritual person, which is that Christ, the anointed one, in you is very powerful. It does not, cannot ever cease to exist. So, essentially, you're a spirit, and everything around you is a spirit. Well, how does a tree get to be a tree? Well, it evolves. It has a certain, you say, well, it doesn't think and stuff like humans, so it's, that's just a thing. Well, we just said there's no such thing as things. Everything that physically exists in a spiritual way first. And so the universe was a big melting pot. It was just one. And that is the divine. That is God. The whole universe is his body. He spreads out the stars like a tent in which to dwell in. That's the spirit. And your body is the temple of the living God. Your body is a microcosm of this macrocosm. As above, so below. So your head is the top, represents the top, and your feet the bottom. Then you've got the solar system. You've got the sun and all the way down through the planets. The 7 planets and the 7 chakras. Same thing goes for the galaxy and for the universe. Microcosms and macrocosms. There's little cells with, molecules. There's atomic structure. The nucleus of every atom has a neutron, and then there's protons and electrons, and depending on how many electrons, like planets, that are going around it, it makes a different type or frequency or a different hardness. It could be very hard like lead, or it could be like water or air. The ancient ones called this, they just broke it down into a science which was much more simple, because they knew what they were talking about. So now we don't really understand it. We're trying to understand it on paper. But the universe was broken into earth, fire, and water, and air. See? In a sense, that's what we believe today. We know this is true. But we've lost the simplicity of all of this. We've broken up these sciences so that we no longer really understand it. They made it too complicated. You can't remember that, H2O. Well, that's hydrogen and oxygen with two molecules. You know, too complicated. We don't need all that. We need experience with reality. So in ancient times, this physical world wasn't really as physical, because what we're finding out is that the physical is a manifestation of your spiritual, and that is your mind. You have emotions, that's the water. The mind, that's the sky. And the physical, that's the earth. That's why elves that are in the earth, they're earth creatures, they don't have wings. But fairies have wings because they're in the sky. And mermaids, they have fins. There are creatures that live in the water, and they're not the animals that you see. We have those. But there are other spiritual entities that you can't see, and they're represented by these individuals. They're beings. And they obey. It's a chain of command. The physical universe is expressed. And everything's created by the Logos, who was with the Father from the beginning. All things came into being through the Word. And that's not a really good translation, word. It really means the expression, like logo, logistics, logic, reason, the mind. So the mind creates the universe. It's all concepts. Light, like on a projector, going out, hitting the screen, and making what appears to be a hologram like real, but it all comes from an idea, from light. That's the real substance. So, because it all comes from mind, the universe then, where is this God that's center of everything? Well, we found that there is no center. It's infinite, and yet it's nowhere, because there isn't any time or space. It is not something, the universe doesn't exist in time and space. That's only a concept. The universe exists in something else. And what is that? The universe exists in you. Man, humankind, womankind, we are the gods. The last of the creation, the crowning creation of the universe. Remember, there's no time and space, so it didn't happen in time. We are the height, the crowning glory of creation. And it is our word, because we're the ones who stand up straight. Look at the earth itself. It's a microcosm of the greater microcosm. So we can use the earth as an example. You look at the earth and look all around you. You see anything greater than you? Well, the mountain's greater than you. Why? Because it's taller? That doesn't mean it's greater than you. You can move a mountain with faith. The trees, they're taller than you. Maybe they give shade. You can't do that. A rock can hold up a whole house. You can't hold up a house. But you know that all of that is your home. It's part of you. You're the boss. You're the God that lives in this world. Any world as far as we can see. Look as far as you can see over the hills, over the valleys, and off over the ocean. Search for 1,000 years. Anywhere that you'll ever be able to go, that you know beyond any doubt is real, not just in some fantasy or somebody's book or a novel. But as far as the known universe is concerned, this world's right here. Even if you took off in outer space and took off flying, would you ever find anyone or anything out there greater than you? Because you have the ability to think, devise, plan, make a spaceship, dig a hole, bury a rock, grow a tree. You can manipulate the universe, and you can do much more. But this is the thing. We've lost this power. So the tree, you say, well, it's insignificant. It doesn't have thoughts. It's not conscious. It's not a being. I can cut it down and chop it up and burn it in a fire. And I can torture the animals. And, see, the ancient native peoples, when they understood the circle of life. They understood that wolves hunted rabbits and ate the rabbits, and the lions hunted the wolves, and it was a cycle of life. And they understood that humans, at the top of the chain, we had to take a life, say maybe a deer, and eat the deer, or a fish. But we would always respect, we'd make an altar, And when we made by fire, we would put a certain amount of this on the fire, and it would go up into the air, into the unknown, into the spiritual world, as a gift. We'd put back. We wouldn't just take. And you would never take an animal that you didn't need or you didn't eat. You wouldn't just kill an animal because it was a sport. It's ridiculous today we talk about that guns are just for sport. In our Constitution, we just have guns because some people are sportsmen. They like go shoot animals. That's not what it's about. On any level, it's about defending yourself and defending yourself from a tyrannical government. But that's a whole nother video. So, even Jesus in the Nag Hammadi library spoke about or you're happy as the lion who eats the man and becomes a man. You see, a lion will eventually, through evolution, he'll eventually become a man. And that's a good thing. But bad for the man who ends up being eaten by the lion and becomes a lion. See, that's no good. You don't go backwards. Okay, we've got to move and evolve and learn and grow. Because the highest at the pinnacle of creation and all of this energy around us is humans. And we're the ones who have the ability to control the other spirits because it all stems and emanates from us. Everything in the universe emanates from our consciousness. Say, well, then how come nothing's happening the way I want it to and it's all against me and I go out in the forest and the lion eats me? If I'm in charge, why is the lion eating me? Because it's like going out into the world. Let's say somebody drops you down in Alaska or the jungle of the Amazon or something. Well, you're naked and walking around and there's thorns and thistles and you're going to die pretty fast if you don't find some shelter and some water and some food. You're the king of this world. All these animals are there to serve you. Remember, what was that movie? The Jungle Book story. See, this little boy was raised by the animals, and he ended up growing up, and they loved him, and they'd do anything in the world for him. This is a true story. All these stories like Genie and Aladdin's lamp and stuff, these all stem from ancient truths that now are just fairy tales to us. See, you're in charge. But if you don't know how to build a fire, if you knew how to build a fire, you could build a fire and keep warm. You could cook and you could build a home and you could be fine. But if you don't know how, so, well, that's not fair. Well, because you're intelligent and you have a father who can teach you because his father taught him, then we're initiated into these truths. And by learning this information, we learn how to live, how to survive. We understand, oh, the world around me, I see it's spiritual. There are spirits in the trees. If I talk to the trees correctly, if I love nature, I can take for instance a dog. You got some sheep and you got to herd those sheep because you need the wool. It's beautiful. I mean, the wool's provided for you, but you got to herd them from here to there. Well, that's where another creature comes in. Dog. You can't herd sheep, right? They go running everywhere and they don't listen, and it's very difficult. It's too much work for a human. It doesn't matter though. We're in charge. So we get our friend the dog involved with this. And the dog's like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? He loves this. This is his job. He's your best friend, man. You tell that border collie. I've got a border collie. Smartest dog in the world, according to dog books, And I don't doubt it because my dog is very smart. But you tell that dog, go herd those sheep, man, he's going to herd those sheep. And he knows how to take those sheep and herd them right into the pen. But now if I took and I said, my dog's name is Blue, and if I said, Blue, I'm going to kick you, you're worthless. And I went over there and kicked him and started beating on him and didn't feed him, never loved him, never gave him, a pat on the back or took him with me, just left him alone. fend for himself, he'd become wild. He'd take off. He wouldn't want nothing to do with me. As it is, he's one of my best friends. But I treat him with respect. And because I love him and treat him with the respect that is due him, he's happy to do his job. The stuff that I wouldn't be able to do, the hard work. And you can do that with a bull, or cats have their place in nature. There's so many animals in the world today that we don't even use them. We've lost this ancient wisdom. Did you know what an elephant's for? Yeah, they're helping you build houses. They got tusks, and they can stick those tusks underneath some poles. They can push trees down, first of all. They're so strong, like a bulldozer. You can put their tusks underneath, put their trunk around it, and carry a whole stack of logs over there for your house to be built. We don't use them no more. So we got cats. We don't use horses no more. We got trucks. All right, well, it works, kind of, but we're not in tune with nature. Remember the story Avatar? They had to connect to their horse or their pterodactyl or whatever they were riding. They had to become one with nature. There was that tree, and they would touch the tree, and the energy would cut that tree down. That's it. No more energy. Got to have a connection. The connection is the start with. If you don't understand, if you've never been taught what the world is around you, this is going to take so much time, friends. This is probably number 3, and I'm going to have to do at least a number 4 in this series to be able to teach and explain the world that we really live in, because you've never been told. See, you didn't have someone who handed down knowledge of truth. You were told, come to university and we'll tell you about religion, but then we're going to laugh about it. Oh, they thought the earth was flat, and now they think it's round. And somebody thought astrology was real, and it ain't. Oh, my goodness. We've lost this ancient truth. They used to hunt dragons, and there ain't no such thing as dragons. Never was. We looked, and we never found no dragons. Well, dragons were not entirely physical. They disappeared, just like the unicorns, just like the elves in Ireland. So you're kind of getting crazy there, Dave. You're a little bit loony, right? Okay, well, just because they don't teach about these things in university, they don't teach it like it's real, but they do teach about it. So why were these ancient peoples, in the days of the Egyptians and the Babylonians, building these 390 feet structures with 100-ton rocks that we can't lift today? It pointed to stars, and they knew astrology better than we do. They were aware of Sirius A and Sirius B. We just found out about. They knew stuff. They could see stuff in the stars that you can't see with telescopes. You have to go there. They knew what color the planets were. They knew that there were 7 planets. The Bible knows this too. I mean, Jesus was always doing the 5 and the 7, right? The 5 fishes, and the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes. That's 7. Why is there 5 and 2? Well, 7 planets. Well, 2 of them is the sun and the moon, Mama and Daddy. There's really only 5, but you got to have the sun and the moon. And you see, 2 out of the 7 are female, the moon and Venus. You've got 7 notes, right? Fa, ti, la, ti, do. We got 7 notes, but 2 of them don't have a flat. A B flat is a C. There's only 5 notes that can have like an A flat, or C flat, or a D flat. But E doesn't have a flat. So there are this beautiful symmetry is stuff that science today thinks is hogwash, and they don't know anything about this. Well, the 7 planets has nothing to do with, your chakras, and we don't even think you have chakras. Oh, this is complicated. The astrology that they were learning in the ancient times was all of the sciences together, and it had to do with who and where we are, who you are. But now you've forgotten, because that's the whole point. There was no telling what these people could do with this knowledge. This God, Yahweh, he didn't want us to know. He wanted us to be slaves. So he hid this from us, and he scattered our language so that we wouldn't have knowledge to become like God. To know who we were. To have our eyes open so that we say, oh, man, look at that. I'm in charge of the trees and the mountains. And, they do stuff that I can't do. but it's an extension of myself because I'm the voice. I have to command the elves. See now, how come you can't survive when you're out there in the woods then? If you're the commander, like we said. Well, because there's harsh elements. The snow will kill you without shoes and proper clothing and a cabin. If you don't know how to build it, then you're going to die, even though you're... Remember the prodigal son? He owned it all. His daddy was the king. But he was going to die. He was out there eating slop with the pigs because he thought, I can't go home. I've squandered everything. You can't squander everything. You're the king. You're the prince. By law, you are to inherit the entire farm, which is the whole kit and caboodle. It's all the universe is yours because you're the king or the queen or the chief ruler of the universe. First in command. And so all the other beings and entities obey you. But if you're going to tell that dog to go herd your sheep and you kick him, he'll run off and he won't do what you say. Even though you are his boss, you can get so frustrated. Oh, doggone, you better get over here and do what I say, or I'll knock you in the... Oh. Well, he didn't appreciate that, so he ran off. He ain't coming back, because he knows if he comes back, he's going to get kicked. So he probably won't be back for a while. About the only thing you can do is see if you can get some food and lure him back in, you know. Say, come on, I didn't mean it. And once you get his confidence back, maybe you can say, I'm sorry, you know. And if you start acting right and treating him right, showing him love, then maybe that dog will start herding some sheep for you. Or maybe he'll sit at your porch and he'll protect you and he'll alert you when somebody, a stranger or something comes around. Something's going to get you or hurt you. So you won't die. You won't suffer. Because you see, not only does the animals help you, but the trees too. I mean, if you show nature some love, you're out in the wild and you're just angry and you're just full of bitterness and all of a sudden a snake comes up and bites you. Then you lay there and die. I thought you were the king. I thought you were the prince. What happened? Well, sea serpents. They're very, you know, they're pretty, they got a lot of power, right? They can do a lot of stuff. They can kill you. But they will never kill someone who speaks the word of authority. See, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to learn in this video. And I'm already about, I see I've gone 37 minutes, almost 38 minutes. So we're almost to the end of this one. I'll probably go about an hour, another 20 minutes. I'm going to try to get some really good stuff. But there are some real, not just, I try to get the philosophy in there, just so you can understand what this is, and this is real. And then we're going to get into some, we're going to lay the groundwork, and then we're going to tell you about some things. How to become the greatest magician. See, I don't perform ceremonial magic or ritual magic. Never have, and I never will. And I'll explain why. But maybe if we do another video or two, I'll get to why I don't do that. I know a lot of you do. But, you know, in a nutshell, the reason why is because ritual magic can give you... it's like being out in the wild and learning to build a cabin. And, you know, you've got to learn these things. Build a cabin, how to build fires and stuff like that. These are very, very important pieces of information. But there are individuals that don't want to settle down. They don't want to live in the woods and build a cabin. Now, this is entirely different from reality because I am actually building a cabin in the woods here. And it's something that I've always wanted to do. And so I'm just using it as an illustration. But there are those, though, that a specific point in their life, that's not where they're at. They want to do something greater. So they don't settle down and learn how to build a house, become an artisan, a carpenter like the Lord Jesus, right? Did you know that word doesn't mean carpenter, it means a mason? And yeah, it meant the same thing in those days as it does today. A mason was a person who was of the craft, or, you know, it wasn't a real carpenter. Jesus didn't actually, like, build a cabin, you know, and stub his finger and, you know, oh, I'm a carpenter, right? Let's get this wall up, Dad. Joseph, come on. No, they weren't really building. Jesus never was a carpenter. He was a mason. He knew the arts of the craft of building the world. He was a spiritual carpenter. And so this is what we've got to do. Because we, forget about, even though we may have a mundane physical life where we're actually building cabins. But what we really want to do is start doing something like building a little bit more substantial abode for eternity. We'll start learning how to control the spirits, the elves, and see the dragons and the unicorns, make them our friends so that we can have power. You don't do that with ritual magic, because even though it's related, but I'm not interested in getting gifts or favors, or the reason I don't use it for my own personal health, making spells so that I'll be healthy and stuff, is because there is a magic which is far superior, which I don't even call magic. It means that we become a god. See, we're no longer just a wizard, but we're literally a god. We're an authority. Like the disciples, they didn't even bother with the term wizard or the term magic, right? They compared what they were doing to the Simon Magus. They weren't saying, "Oh, look, that's magic and that's bad, and then there's us," right? All they were saying is, "Look, he can do miracles, we can do miracles, but he wants power." And what do we want? Just to help you, just to literally achieve salvation. And how do you do that? Well, the Apostle Paul spent 3 years in the wilderness being initiated into the truths, and finally he went to a place called paradise, which is within you, in the center, the perfect this is all a copy of, right? The perfect, not the logos goes forward, the word, the logic, the reason, and creates this illusion. But the photo copy, the reality within us, the spiritual realm. That's that beautiful paradise with the mountain and the river of life and the tree of life and all of those things that are beautiful. And unless you can get to that real realm where there are real trees and you're able to see, this world has gone and crystallized deeper and deeper into the form that it's taken today. So you can no longer even see with your own eyes the elves and the dragons. 1,000 years ago, there were people who could see them. Very few people can see them today because it requires a spiritual person. But we've been sucked into these schools, these universities. Our teachers, they don't know anything anymore. They've led us astray. They've scattered our languages. So we can no longer see spiritual things or understand spiritual things. So we don't have authority over them because we don't even know they exist. That's just laughable. It's funny, ha ha. But what we're going to have to do in these videos is prove that this world's real. And then for those of you who finally come to the place where you're willing to listen to all this and grasp that the world we're talking about in this video is real, not the world you've been taught in the universities today where they've lost this apostasy. It's not just the church that's in apostasy, it's the world. And they don't know. Their master Aristotle knew these things. They don't. They just said, "Oh, those guys, those old men with beards in the old ancient times, those wizards, they didn't know anything." Well, they knew a lot, and there is a lot to be taught from the ancient legends of Ireland and Africa and India. So we're going to learn about how to become the masters of the world around us. It's not done through ritual magic. It's not done through ceremonial magic. That's for beginners. That's an art that was handed down to keep this truth in the world. But the Apostle Paul went to paradise, and he heard words which was unlawful for a man to speak. Well, what does that mean? We've talked about this, but see, it doesn't just necessarily mean that it's not lawful. You are not allowed to say that. It's against the law. I mean, Jesus explained why he didn't tell everybody everything. He says, you don't throw your pearl before swine, they'll turn around and rend you. But it's deeper than that. It's not just that we're not allowed to say it, it's not lawful, but it's not going to help you. Nobody believes you. People will put you in a funny house with padded walls. You see, if you talk to the animals and talk to spirits, then you are probably crazy and schizophrenic and lunatic. Now, there are a lot of people that claim to talk to different spirits. Some of them are crazy. Now, why is that? Why is the crazy people always the ones talking to these spirits? I've got I think a cousin that when he was young, he started sniffing gas. And something happened. And after he started getting high and got sort of a little too high one day and almost died, and ever since that time, he was, when he brought him back, and seemed all right, except from that point forward, he was able to see spirits, and he talked to them all the time. Now, his family, their son, right? They're like, man, our son's crazy, right? He's talking to spirits. They thought he was crazy, and he was as serious as all get out. I mean, he'd walk up and he'd see you standing there and he'd have a conversation with you, and while you're talking with him, he's talking to somebody else. You'd ask him, what do they look like? He'd tell you. What are they saying? He'd tell you. Oh man, this man had information you wouldn't believe. You really spent the time to sit down and ask him, well, what are they saying? What is it that they tell you? He knew stuff. He never read any books, but he knew all this information. Another friend did the same thing. Somehow or another, he started drinking a lot and got to a place where he just was passed out most of the time. One day he woke up, he'd had this experience. It's like a plug just got yanked out from the top of his, somehow or another, his third eye became opened and he was able to speak to these spirits. And my friend, I have a friend I've known for many years, very, very, very close, good friend. He knows stuff that years ago he was telling me stuff that I didn't know, and I didn't think I did. Where are you getting this information? What are you talking about? And it was years later that I was told these very same truths, and it's all been confirmed to me. All of what he was talking about, that he got from meditation and just prayer. It's all been confirmed. He didn't get it from a university. They don't have the information. The Apostle Paul went to the third heaven, to paradise, that inner spiritual place in the third court of the temple. And the words that he heard are the words that are the truth, is the explanation. And that's the thing that you have to do, is you have to be able to get in there and to hear the instructions. All of the apostles, all of the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, any of them, all of them, Revelation, John, they all had a revelation of this paradise. They talk about tree of life and the serpent garden. And that's paradise. And that's that inner spiritual reality. The river of life, the tree of life, all of these, the rocks, the mountains, the reality. You've got to get to the reality. And in that place, serpents do talk, my friend. And if you can't see it, it's because your eyes are not open. And that's the thing that you need to do. You don't need to even worry about ritual magic. You can do it, but you see, and you need control, but there's a better way. You can control all of nature around you with love, with faith, and by knowledge. If you're going through a forest and you're bitter and angry, and you have not conquered those demons, the demons of deception and fear, and hate and bitterness, then it wouldn't even probably do you a lot of good to try and learn and master ritual and ceremonial magic, because you won't be very good at it. Because the spirits that you're contacting, the jinns, they won't do anything for you. See, you can practice a spell written down in ancient times, and perhaps that spell, it has been placed in a situation where if you speak that exactly the way it was intended and use the exact words that was written in that language, and do this and do that and such, and have a crystal and a certain incense and make a circle and do this and that, it'll work, and they must obey you. But until you become their master, until you learn who you are, and you make friends with the world around you, you'll never have absolute power. You'll never be able to pass on to the next grade, because there's, Christ, the first fruits, and after those who belong to him during his parousia, the presence, which is now. He's present with those who can see. Each in his own rank, the Apostle Paul says. Each in his own order. If you want to be of the order of the Son of God, the Melchizedek order, a priest after the authority and the power that was given to Abraham by Melchizedek, you've got to learn this knowledge that the Apostle Paul found in here, that he didn't learn from the apostles in Jerusalem. He said, I didn't go up to Jerusalem. Whatever men they were formerly makes no difference to me. I saw Peter, wonderful man. Peter was one of the greatest men that ever walked the earth, one of the greatest magicians. Literally had the power to heal a paraplegic. The man that Jesus gave the keys of the kingdom to. And yet the Apostle Paul didn't get this information from him, but he got it directly from Jesus Christ. And he got it in this inner spiritual place, and he learned the words, and he was instructed in the instruction that you cannot get from these schools today, because they have lost it, or from religion, or from someone else. Because even if they had the truth and they were able to convey that information to you, you would have to be able to, first of all, receive it. A lot of you right now you're not receiving anything I'm saying. You're still probably laughing. Gnomes and salamanders too, huh? Down there in hell, right? There's salamanders. Talk to trolls and elves, Dave. Yeah, I know. Okay. Laugh all you want. But, if we're out in the middle of the woods somewhere and we're stranded and it's getting dark and cold and, you're starting to get scared, you're going to go find somebody who has knowledge, knows how to build a fire and a lean-to. And then you're not going to be laughing. We're living in a world where we need those fairies. We need those mermaids. Are you emotional? Are you an emotional wreck? Are you so overwhelmed by emotions that you're bitter and angry and you're lashing out? The dog took off running, right? He ain't going to hurt your sheep. Your wife left you. Well, guess what? There's a lot of other elemental spirits that aren't going to do anything for you either. And so nothing that your hands do will succeed. Nothing. You're just out of luck. This is why we have to follow after the Spirit. And through love and faith, all things are possible. So what we're going to do is we're coming down to the end of this video. We really didn't get into the information that we're going to start get into in the fourth. We're going to teach you literally how to become the greatest form of magician that there is in the world, so that you have the authority and the power over all the things around you, and that you can literally become a master of your environment and your world. It's a beautiful thing. So we'll get into that in the next video, and I hope you guys have a really great day. This is David Vos, and we'll see you again tomorrow.